What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy the Hater here, and I decided to watch AEW, frankly, because there's a blood and guts match, and I'm a sucker for big matches. So I figured I'd watch the whole show and give it a chance. Now, I'm not gonna lie, obviously I skipped around, I'm not gonna watch every promo in its entirety and things like that, but I think I watched like 90% of the show, because quite frankly, it was really good. As I said in the community post earlier, the Hater is a man of facts. The Hater is a man of the people, and the Hater is a man of honor. You understand me? I speak truths, all right? I think that's going to be one of my catchphrases. I speak truths, all right? And the truth of the matter is that by far, this was the greatest episode of AEW Dynamite ever, right? Let's be honest. Now, I know that this channel is predicated upon me disliking AEW and me generally disliking things, right? But I am a man of honor. Like I said, I speak truths. And the truth of the matter is that this was an excellent pay-per-view quality episode of Dynamite. For the first time in the history of this company, I might buy the pay-per-view. Now, I don't think the pay-per-view is going to live up to this, and I'm not saying AEW is like back on track, because quite frankly, they've always sucked. This is the highest point they've ever achieved. So without further ado, let's explain why. First off, MJF comes out, right? He cuts an actually good promo. He's developing a sort of gimmick. He now has this elitist gimmick, which was always kind of baked in to MJF as a character, but he never quite tapped into it, right? Now he taps into it full blown, right? He basically says that the UK is a second-rate or a third-rate country, right? Knowing that he's going to have to go wrestle there. And that basically he has now rebranded the bullshit title, the American Championship. The belt is revealed. It looks great. It doesn't look like a mid-card belt, even though it is a jobber belt. It does not look like one. And the AEW does a good job with the belts. I think we all got to give them props for that, right? Osprey comes out, and he cuts a pretty decent promo too after chasing MJF out. And his promo is like, look here, bruv. You had to cheat to beat me. MJF is like, I didn't cheat. I beat you in 30 seconds or whatever, right? Like, that's not funny. Like, there's no need for that. MJF's point was made. The idea is that MJF shows up when the spotlight shines the brightest, and Will Osprey flounders, right? And Will Osprey basically said, we have a rematch. See you there, right? Now, again, the problem here is that there's no logic here, because the reality, quite frankly, is that, at the end of the day, this match can never be as good as their, TV match, because unless it goes on an hour again, But anyways, next up, we have Jericho versus Minoru Suzuki. Jericho wins eventually with a fucking Judas effect. The match was totally mid. It didn't really matter, but, basically, there's a point in the beginning of the match where Jericho and Minoru Suzuki are just chopping each other, right? Minoru Suzuki is just old at this point. Minoru Suzuki is a legend. He's an MMA legend, one of the best grapplers literally of all time. But he's old, right? So he can't do 95% of the moves that he did, and he never had this versatile moveset to begin with. So he's just, every Suzuki match is just chops, and then 2 minutes of match. This was no different, right? Minoru Suzuki's finishing move, which is a sleeper hold into the Gotch-style pile driver, he just fucked it up 3 times, basically. It just didn't look believable. He put on the sleeper hold for 1 second, then he turned the guy around, and it's only a person that's completely going along with this would take this move. So this match was kind of mid, cucks. Then we had Britt Baker and Hikaru Shida. I don't particularly give a rat's ass about this match, but I will say this. Britt Baker looks good, and so does Hikaru Shida, right? And that was one of the themes that I saw developing during this episode, right? It's Britt Baker, for better or for worse, she's a good-looking woman. So, if you compare her to, the things that we see on Raw and SmackDown, on Raw and SmackDown, we have to see, Bianca Belair, fucking, Zoe Stark, these, average to ugly women, you know what I mean? No disrespect. I'm not saying it has to be about this, but it's a surprising turn of events when we see good-looking women in wrestling once again, right? The match was whatever. Britt Baker wins with the lockjaw, which I've always said is an excellent finishing move, right? It's basically the mandible claw with a double arm bar, right? And it fits her perfectly. She uses the glove. Britt Baker is actually I'm turning on her a little bit, right? Hikaru Shida is Hikaru Shida, right? Then we have Pac versus Bear Boulder. The match was mid and boring. The entire point of the match here is that Pac can kick ass. And Pac does kick ass. He beats him with what they call a brainbuster, but what actually was a vertical suplex. Now, kudos to Pac for being able to do his part in lifting this fat bastard. But obviously the guy did it himself. Pac cannot hold this man up. Nobody can hold this man up in a brainbuster. So this guy fell, maybe like Goldberg could, right? He fell and it was a suplex. I thought it was a good touch, right? Because Pac is known as like a high flyer, but when he's a heel, and he's kind of like heelish a little bit, he's back to that like sadistic bastard gimmick, right? The reality is that like he can do power moves, right? And maybe he shouldn't be doing it against this guy, right? But he can do it. And I think it's actually kind of unique to have like a athletic guy with like a brainbuster finisher, like it's almost like the fans aren't going to get the Black Arrow, which is obviously like, a fucking incredible move, like all things considered, right? And also, addresses one of the main criticisms I have of Pac, which is that every match of Pac is basically he goes for the Black Arrow. He always does it, right? If he hits it, he wins. If he misses, he loses. This was not one of those matches. So I give it props for that. Then we have the debut of Mariah May, right? Mariah May comes out. She wrestles some jobber. I don't remember who it was, to be completely honest. I don't care who it was. But basically, Mariah May is doing like Toni Storm's move. She looks great. That's another good-looking woman that we've got here. Toni Storm is also a relatively good-looking woman. But like Mariah May, she like reminds me of the old divas, She's all about the sex appeal, right? She's all about the glamour. And this is, I hope she wins because this is a great character. This is a great wrestling personality. I think there's a lot of hope here for Mariah May, right? She was quite frankly like held back by like bullshit. And there we have it. You know what I'm saying? So whatever. It is what it is. Then we've got the next match was the main event. The Blood and Guts match, right? This match, like, I don't want to like go hard on so I'm looking at the Bleacher Report thing just to refresh my memory so I don't remember anything. And they gave this match a B, which is fucking retarded. This match was a 10 out of 10. This was, in my personal opinion, by far the best AEW match of all time. I can't think of anything that's as good, right? This was an incredible match. I would go as far as to put this as one of the greatest cage Hell in a Cell type matches, not counting Elimination Chambers because we've had some really good Elimination Chambers, right? But this is one of the best matches I've ever seen. I'm not even exaggerating. This match had everything. And the reason why I really liked it is because it is a match filled with jobbers. But as the expression goes in my country, sometimes you make funnel cakes out of water, right? Sometimes you don't have the flour or whatever the fuck goes into the batter of a funnel cake. So you gotta make do with what you got. And the reality is that every person in this match carried their weight. And there's several people in this match that are vastly underrated. And we're going to talk about that. The match starts out with Jack Perry and Darby Allin coming out. This part is completely irrelevant because nobody cares about the one-on-one match. Jack Perry comes out wearing a goat head, right? Which I think I've seen him do before. Quite frankly, I skip the entrances usually. But he comes out wearing a goat head, which I think is a good touch, right? It's goofy, but it's like it's supposed to be. So it's fine, right? Basically, nothing really happens here. They're just like beating each other up. But they're beating each other up, which is pretty cool. Then, next up, Nicholas Jackson, comes up and he beats the shit out of everybody, right? Nicholas Jackson is whooping that ass. He hits the three Northern Lights on Darby. And then Mark Briscoe, who's one of my favorite wrestlers in the world. Like, I think the Briscoes are right there. Like, to me, it's like Dudley Boys, #1 tag team of all time. And the Briscoes are the #2 tag team of all time, in my opinion. Because they're just so crazy over. They're so crazy good. And they have, like, a really, really good, like, authentic gimmick, right? Before the match, there's, like, some tiffs and riffs between, like, Team AEW. And Mark Briscoe pulls them together and he says, "The violent people are here. You ain't safe, Elite." And he's talking not just to the Elite, but he's like, all of you entitled and the pompous, right? He's like, you ain't safe because, like, now I'm a real one, right? He comes out there, starts beating the shit out of people, starts bleeding, right? Match is going full-blown blood everywhere, right? Everyone, I think, bleeds. Eventually, Matthew Jackson comes out. And then, the one thing that I didn't like about this match is that the general structure of the War Games or the Blood and Guts is such that, like, you don't really enjoy it until the match starts, in my opinion, right? Because it's just like the match cannot end, right? Half of the fun of a match is that it can end at any point, and in this match, it cannot end, right? So there's a lot of beatings going on, and now I'm just going to talk about some of the great spots, right? So there was a spot, and I'm going to do these out of order as they come into my head. So there was a spot where Mark Briscoe does the Jay Driller to like 4 people in a row. That was sick. The Jay Driller is a great move. He does it to 4 people in a row. This motherfucker saved up his finishes on WWE 2K24, and he hit it on all these jobbers, right? That was a great moment. Okada did like the Rainmaker thing where he like does the Rainmaker, but he flips the guy off and then kicks him in the balls. I like that too. It's a nice little addition. It kind of shows some character from him. The Young Bucks did their shtick, but it was more wild than usual, right? Barbed wire boards came out, thumbtacks came out. Darby Allin used a skateboard to like hit someone on the back. I forget who it was, but he jumped on someone's back. People did their finishers, right? A lot of cool things happened in this match. One of my favorite spots was Max Caster. By the way, Max Caster and Anthony Bowens are both stars. I don't know why these guys don't get pushed. They're both charismatic, right? They both look great. And I know that Anthony Bowens is gay, but one of my friends told me that Max Caster is also gay or bi or something, right? So you can even market them as that, right? But these guys are just great. I've always liked the Acclaimed. From day one, the Acclaimed is like one of the highlights of AEW, right? They proved their worth here, It could have been other people, but they did some cool shit. Number one, Max Caster got his mouth filled with thumbtacks, and they did like a double super kick to a kneeling Max Caster while he had fucking thumbtacks in his mouth, right? That was a great move. Staplers came out, motherfucks. Staplers came out. People stapling each other all over the place. There was a part where like the 4 of the bad guys, they basically gangbang Swerve Strickland with staple guns, right? That was a really cool moment, and the aftermath of that was really cool, where basically like in a very choreographed situation, Swerve Strickland just turns it around on all 4 of them. It was a little bit silly, like not even Hulk Hogan could beat 4 people, but whatever, it is what it is, right? Another thing that happened in this match was Adam Page, who was the 5th man for Team Elite, didn't come out. Basically, his whole story is he hates Swerve Strickland, and that's all that matters to him, right? Swerve Strickland comes out on cue. He gets attacked. He gets blindsided from behind by by Adam Page, right? Adam Page handcuffs him to the outside of the cell, starts beating the shit out of him, right? Then Jeff Jarrett comes out. Brandon Cutler comes out and tries to stop Jeff Jarrett. Brandon Cutler's a jobber. Jeff Jarrett's a legend, Jeff Jarrett never gets his dues, A wild slapnuts appears, like Marky D would say, but he never gets his dues. Jeff Jarrett is like in his 50s. He still looks great and he still wrestles. So I'm a big fan of Jeff Jarrett. I always have been, to be honest. Right? Jeff Jarrett comes out with a guitar, a red guitar, and Brandon Cutler is like, I'm not going to let this happen. Billy Gunn comes up, taps him on the shoulder. Brandon Cutler turns around. Billy Gunn says, suck this! Punches him in the face. Cutler turns around, gets the guitar smashed into his head, and it's still wrapped around his neck. Then Jeff Jarrett tries to this was a fail. He tries to get the handcuff, the only handcuff left, off of Swerve, and he fails, right? Prince Nana comes out with bolt cutters, right? These little shitty pliers, really. They should have just had bolt cutters, but they come up with or shears or something, right? They come up with these little bolt cutters, and it's impossible for Swerve Strickland to cut the cage in its entirety. So the cage was already pre-cut, right? Which really takes away from the allure. It would have been better if you just had like a bigger thing, right? Or that if someone cut the cage throughout the match, I don't know, something to kind of make this feel more organic, right? Swerve Strickland comes in, clears house, right? The match gets even more wild. There's a part where Jay Briscoe does the froggy bow on a table in between the ring, right? Mark Briscoe, motherfucks. So Mark Briscoe really shined in this, and he deserves it. Like, he's one of the most slept on wrestlers of all time, in my opinion, right? Darby Allin also showed up. There was a spot. This was a fucking insane spot, man. I was like, they're not doing this. They can't. Darby Allin starts climbing the scaffolding, basically, right? Of one of the cages, because the cage is split in two, kind of, right? And he basically climbs all the way up while Jack Perry's laying on a table, and he just does the coffin drop from the top of the cage, basically. It was fucking insane. He landed it pretty well, not perfectly. That was really great. What else happened in this motherfucker? I know I'm missing some good spots here, but there was a lot of good spots, right? Another thing that happened was eventually Max Caster and one of the Young Bucks, I don't know which one, went outside, right? They're climbing up the cage. One of the Young Bucks smashes Anthony Bowens, I think it was Anthony Bowens, his head on the side of the cage and throws him down through 3 or 4 tables, right? That was a nice little table spot. You knew it was going to happen, but, you didn't know when it was going to happen and how it was going to happen, but it was nice, right? I don't know who set up the tables because I skipped that part because there was a commercial, so I skipped it, and when I came back, tables were set up. That was another thing that sucked about this, the commercials, but what can you do? You know what I mean? Like, you either got to pay for this match or you're going to have to see it like this, so it is what it is. Then, the match is coming to an end, right? Mark Briscoe, handcuffs, scapegoat Jack Perry against the cage, right? And to Jack Perry's credit, he took a beating in this match, right? Then, basically, Darby Allin says, do you quit? And, Jungle Boy was like, I don't, right? Both sides came out looking really strong here, right? Then what happens is, I don't even know what's happening to Swerve and everything else. Maybe they hurt each other. I don't know. I don't care. I think it happened during the commercial. But they presented that as a big spot because the way announcers were talking about it seemed like it was a big spot. The commercial got skipped. I don't know what to tell you, cucks. But basically, what happens after this is Mark Briscoe gets a chair and just fucking wails on Jack Perry's head. Like just a clean, unprotected chair shot. Old school style, motherfucks. Now, I know that these are not good for the Braineroo, but the reality is Jack Perry took it like a fucking champ, right? So, fuck CM Punk. I'm on Team Jack Perry from now on. What do you think of them apples? He just takes this chair shot. I thought this guy was fucking dead. It was the second sickest chair shot I've ever seen, right? And the first one was on an independent event when I saw it like one row away, right? This just was so brutal. Maybe it's because we haven't seen one in a long time, but it was just a vicious chair shot because Mark Briscoe was in the ring. So he really had to overextend himself and really swing, right? So it was brutal. Despite this, Darby Allin is like, do you quit? And Nicholas Jackson is there handcuffed to the rope. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, it's gone too far, blah, 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 right? And he's like, no, he's like, I'm going to, let's get the party started, basically, right? Darby Allin gets like a Jerry, what's it called? A Jerry tank? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like the little gas tank things, right, that you keep in your car. There's a word, like a jerry can, I think it is, whatever. And then he douses fucking, what's his face? Jack Perry with gasoline. And he's about to light this motherfucker on fire, right? Which is the natural conclusion to a match like this, right? If you have two sides that really hate each other, you have to really get them to stop, right? One way to do it is to threaten murder, motherfuckers. Threaten murder, all right? So he threatens to burn this fucker alive. Before this, he's, like I said, he was talking to Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson gives him a match between Jack Perry and himself at the pay-per-view, and he doesn't burn it. Nicholas Jackson quits on behalf of Jack Perry. The losers are disappointed. The winners are not, right? But the winners took some beatings too. This was a phenomenal match. Now, I do understand that to me, this match represents a lot of things, right? Number one, it represents a form. I was going to say a return to form, but AEW has never been good. So this represents, like, this is the best thing they could have possibly done, right? There's that. Two, it represents the arrival, in my personal opinion, of Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe should be a main event talent. The fact that we have people like Swerve Strickland, who also impressed me in this match, right? But Swerve Strickland's kind of boring. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's like there was one part where he beat them all up with the staplers, where he was just laughing after taking actual staples to his body. That was kind of cool, but he just doesn't feel like a champion to me. He feels like a mid-carder, Mark Briscoe, to me, feels like a mid-carder, if I'm being honest. But Mark Briscoe, after everything that's happened, he deserves his shot, right? The Briscoe brothers are literally the biggest missed opportunity in WWE. Just the hype that they would bring would have been insane. So Mark Briscoe, this was the arrival of Mark Briscoe as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying he's going to get a massive push or anything, but I did enjoy everything he did, right? And then the spots were amazing, right? This was a fucking TV match, motherfucks. So with all that being said, this match definitely gets the haters rare 10 out of 10 match approval, right? It goes in the pantheon of the greats. So as a result of this match, I'm going to try, I don't know, I have a lot of work this weekend. I'm going to try to watch, not this weekend, whatever the fuck it is, AEW All Out or All In. Who knows, right? The Wembley show, I'm going to try to watch it because I almost want to watch it just to like give props to what they did, right? Because the whole show was great from top to bottom. The only thing that kind of sucked was Jericho and Minoru Suzuki. And at the end of the day, you still fucking got Jericho out of it, right? So everything else, in my opinion, was top notch. Mariah May was looking great. There's a story there, right? There's a story going on with Jericho and the learning tree, right? There's a lot of little stories that are happening here. The MJF segment didn't feel like out of place. It was good. Everything basically in this show was a step towards the right direction. Now, I'm not saying that AEW is going to surpass WWE. We all know that's not going to happen. But, motherfucks, when you tell me, why would you rather watch Damian Priest and Gunther in a boring match that is predicated upon the fact that they have to wrestle because one's the champion, the other one isn't? Or do you want to watch Blood and Guts? I would rather watch Blood and Guts. I don't think there's any possibility that SummerSlam is going to surpass this episode of Dynamite. That's how good this was. In case you haven't seen it, this is a rare occurrence, Cucks. The hater is telling you to go watch Dynamite. What? I think it's the first time I've said that shit in like 1 year. I remember there was one other AEW Dynamite that I reviewed that I liked. There's another, just two, in like years, right? And there's some that were like mid. Like, I mean, I did watch it for a while, right? Like, it was entertaining to an extent, but it did suck and they never lived up to their expectations. Here, the match could have been better, of course, right? You could have put, like, I would have preferred if instead of Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, it was Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs. I would have preferred that, but you don't get everything that you want. And like I said, we're making funnel cakes with water. Based on what we got, what we had presented to us, this was the best it could have gone. A match with the Young Cucks, Jack Perry. This is definitely like, of course, Meltzer's going to give it 5 stars, but this is definitely, in my opinion, one of the best matches that I've seen in years, right? Like, we'd have to turn the clock back to like 10 years ago for a match. Like, the other match, the last match I remember thinking like, wow, this was a fucking amazing match, was Bray Wyatt versus Daniel Bryan in like Royal Rumble, like before WrestleMania 29 or before WrestleMania 30, I guess, right? That was the only other match that was like relevant and good, right? Beyond that, you have to go back to like bragging rights, those bragging rights matches. I'm a sucker for those. Some of the Elimination Chambers, and then obviously like, then after that, you have to go back to like TLC in 2001 and like, Triple H versus Stone Cold and Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels and that kind of shit. Like, we're talking about a rare, like, I'm not trying to like blow steam up AEW's ass, but this match was fucking excellent, right? And this has to be by far like one of the best matches of all time on free TV. The only one that I like more, I think, is like a throwaway match at the Eddie Guerrero, like, memorial show between HBK and Rey Mysterio. That's one of my favorite TV matches of all time. Beyond that, like, there's the one with Zach Gowen versus Brock Lesnar. Versus Big Show. Zach Gowen, Stephanie versus Big Show. That was an incredible match as well. Like, there's a few handful of matches on free TV that are worthy, and this was one of them, motherfuckers. So go watch it, Cucks. The hater is not an AEW fan. Don't get started with that. But I will give it another shot. Cuckolds!